Good morning. I'm gonna call the meeting to order.
They did whatever whenever.
Goes at least some blocks at 2 o'clock.
Blossom bushes, then.
I've got a very brief update.
Good morning. Can y'all help us establish a quorum, please?
I have everybody here other than Huey, Atkins, and then Dr. Smith. Maybe won't be here today.
Okay. So we've got the quorum.
Hold on, because we don't have Terry and Dwayne either.
Yeah, Terry won't be with us unless we absolutely need him. He's in some other meeting.
We have four. We have 9 out of 13.
Okay, thank you so much. Next item of business is approval of 2 different sets of minutes. The August 11th, which was a regular meeting, I believe, and the August 18th, which was the call meeting. So I would accept the motion for both of them. If anybody's got any objection to either one of them, please let me know.
I'll make a motion for approval of both of them.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and approve in a second. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor, aye. Any opposition, same sign. All right, next is the GTC update, Liz.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. I'm gonna let Crystal go ahead and give some RTAC updates for you first, and I believe Gina has a brief update.
Just a couple of things. The, last week, Region 2 had their trauma symposium, more than 600 participants. It was a really great event, wonderful speakers. They had a full vendor hall. And so Kyle wanted to tell everybody, thank you again for your support of that event, and he'll have a full report out soon, on all the numbers and data from that. The next thing I had was we have, Danielle, who's been our Region 3 RTAC coordinator, decided to step down last month. And yesterday we've officially contracted with the next coordinator, which is Steve Elmgren, also known as the Grady Byrne guy, who you guys met a couple of meetings ago. So Steve's going to be joining us this month as the new Region 3 RTAC coordinator. Very excited to have him in that role. And I'm happy to take any other questions about the RTACs, but everything else is proceeding pretty well.
Yeah, I got one. Do the RTAC coordinators have the ability to do virtual meetings?
Yes.
So every RTAC meeting should have a capability.
All but one.
All but one being one or all? but
One, yes, all but one.
So what do we need to do to get you there?
If we're gonna, I mean, Jordan and Scott, I think, have the equipment that's there to do it. We've I think the reason that we've had great success with ours and have the turnout we have every time is because we're not doing that. And everybody across the region has kind of been, they like it that way. They like the in-person. They get to go meet with each other face to face and have that interaction. And it's just worked well for us. And and Brad has it's worked and everybody likes it. So we have refrained from doing it because I think you create an environment of people sitting at their desk at their office.
Yeah.
And they're paying attention to something else. And then I get 4 emails of what we covered, of wanting to know what's going on, of information that we already covered. So we've just stayed away from it, to be perfectly honest.
You have not said anything that I disagree with.
Ain't broke, I agree.
But we put it as a caveat that for the equipment grant, they had to attend 50%. And for some, it may be an issue of time, maybe an issue of distance.
But he's got 50%, more than 50% attending his.
But it's not 50% of the people participating. If I'm getting a grant, I have to participate in 50% of the meetings. Am I saying that right?
If we were doing it once a month or that type, but 4 times out of the year, once a quarter, and it's well known right now today, the whole is there. I know we're all busy and I'm just as busy as anybody, but
I'm very big on in-person meetings. I like to see people talk. And I grant you're online. I know people who go online and then take their phone and do other things. I don't know anybody here that would do that. But
He's in person doing it.
nevertheless,
Has no idea what's being said.
I would ask you to do this, Scott, send
Yes, sir.
out something to your members
Yes,
and ask if anybody's got a problem with that. Because if you've got a problem with that, then we're gonna have to revisit it somehow.
Yeah, do you know, that's what's gonna be my question. Do you know if everybody, all the services that get the grant are meeting 50% right now? If we could get sort of a,
there is only one. They've had a significant change in leadership, and now that that new leadership is there, that's not gonna be an issue. They had a leadership problem,
okay,
that just, no meetings, no nothing
In
whatsoever.
the EMS, a leadership
And
problem.
he wasn't,
Shocker.
she was not participating. Now, I would go by there and visit that individual and, you know, and we had good conversation, but as far as coming to the meeting, that individual wasn't.
Okay.
And
and I
so
think,
that's all it would involve, is that one service.
it's worth mentioning that it doesn't have to be, we know that, and the leaders are just tied up with going to meeting after meeting after.
Right.
It can be a representative.
And
This is-
that's
yeah.
some of that's what we have, and it's got to the point now, the leader is bringing somebody else with them, and they're both attending. So
Okay,
now I've got 80 and 90 people attending my RTAC meetings, and that's hard to,
That's great.
that's hard to argue with.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Anything you say, I just, and if it doesn't become a problem, it won't be a problem. But if it becomes a problem, then we have to figure out what to do.
Because I think when you look at the council side, when we started that with the council, and I know it was through COVID, so I'm trying to keep that in my mind. That's when we started falling off of our participation
Yeah.
with the council, is when we started doing it.
You
And
preach.
those are usually the people that send the emails, hey, so what about so-and-so? Hey, you were logged on, did you not? And I started asking that, hey, you were logged on, and it's even in the minutes. Did you not read those? And I just think there's an advantage to people being there. I understand what you're saying, but we've on purpose pushed back from that and tried to keep them doing it.
Okay, I just, you make sure that you communicate that
Yes,
with
sir.
your folks, and if there's not an issue, there's not an issue, but
Yes, sir.
if it comes to be an issue, then we'll have to figure out something. Cause I don't want anybody to be, because of their distance, some regions are smaller than other,
Right.
Region 9, good gracious, they go forever and a day,
Okay.
so.
okay.
I'm sorry, I interrupted, I hope I didn't destroy y'all's chain of thought.
Was that it for our tracks anyway? Yeah, I'm happy to take any other questions about the RTACs, but we really had a lot of movement over the last 6 months in the RTACs. So very, very proud of all their efforts.
Just a quick G-Clip update. We're continuing, with the build process with Arbormetrics, which is going well. The RTAC scorecards, are going well. We actually got, January through June 2025, out to all the RTACs, last week. So, that was really exciting having Sarah Parker help with, G-Clip. Now we actually had those out to all the regions within a month of having the data downloaded to the central site. So, which was kind of my goal, to get those out a lot quicker. So Sarah has been a great help to that. So we're getting a lot of great questions. We actually, made a definition list of those data points that we shared with the RTAC, coordinators. So they understand the data that's in the scorecards. So I think that's going really well. And we're pulling, some blood data into that scorecard as well for each of the regions. So I hope that project is going to grow with the data we can provide back, from that project. The GQuip leadership, Dr. Smith, Dr. Ayon Chi, myself and Liz are actually going to go to Michigan for first part of next week, to, sit in on MTQuip, Michigan's trauma collaborative, their meeting, to kind of see how they do things and learn from them. So, lots of things going on. So happy to take any questions.
So how do you share that data?
How do I share the regional data?
Yeah.
I send the, scorecards that we kind of came up with, the, template with each of the RTAC coordinators, and then they can disseminate it, with their, at their meeting or with their
Usually
station.
the Performance Improvement Committee that's
Did
evaluating
y'all
those.
share it for this committee?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen it.
Here's mine, right?
Okay.
Hot off the press.
And we actually have, I'm working with Crystal and her, intern that she has in PhD. We're gonna try to start putting together a template that has all the regional data kind of collated together. So it's literally a continuous working process of how to put it together in a meaningful way. We were just looking at Michigan because they do that. They have the regional data and have it put together and collated in a way. So we're always trying to make it better in a way that we can share it and in a way that's meaningful for
So
people. to
the
look at.
templates are same for every region?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
If you'd send that to us, I appreciate it. I got Scotch, you'll have to send that.
And here's the definitions to explain it.
Yeah.
So we've sent out there.
Is there any big words there?
No, sir, no big words.
All right.
But there's some
I'll
interesting
interpret
things
for
to
you.
value in that
Yeah.
data that weren't aware of. And if you just look at it region by region, it's not as noticeable. Like Region 3, they have 3 times the amount of pediatric registry patients. That's significant. Region 7 has a higher percentage of penetrating trauma than does Atlanta. Those are really important things to help the RTACs really drive their injury prevention and their performance improvement. And so the discussions that have come out of having this data available to the RTACs now it's really been tremendous.
And looking to see now which regions are giving pre-hospital blood and which are not. And so, that's been added to the template. So for January through June, of 2025, now that we have that data, there were 251 trauma patients that got pre-hospital blood.
I think that's on the second page in the bottom left-hand corner for our region for blood.
And
products.
then that's the total, and then I compare each region gets their own number of how many patients in the region.
The region, yes, yes.
How many patients in their region, trauma patients got blood that made it to the registry.
And we'll probably have the aggregate by the time this committee meets next, so we have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you guys could see, and
Seeing
then
how it's working.
you'll know that each of your regions just have it further broken down.
Yeah.
Make sure you're seeing your regional data for whatever reason.
Well, I think it's great to be able to compare the different regions. Maybe eventually we get to a county level, and not be able to do that. I don't know if that granular of an effort would be worth the time. I don't know. But anyway, thank you so much. Any questions?
Anything from operations or finance? From you guys? Okay.
Just hold it down.
Okay, I just have a couple other things. We have been mostly, focused on getting our 2026 level 1 and level 2 readiness cost survey across the finish line for the trauma centers. It's the first time they've done a survey in, it's probably been 10 years since the actual data year that we collected on. So this survey should reflect what the increase in costs were to meet the new standards put forth by the ACS, which are pretty robust. So we're really curious to see what that does to our baseline numbers that we have for level 1 and level 2. We're gonna try to get 1s and 2s, we just did the level 3 and level 4 was based on 2019 data, because we did it more recent than that, but we had to use pre-COVID numbers because COVID just messed with the finances too much. So all the centers will be on a cadence to redo their readiness costs, just so we make sure we're kind of keeping our eye on what is happening with that and how the changes to ACS standards impact that. Speaking of ACS standards, I just attended the national COT meeting on Sunday and Monday. A lot going on at the national level. Much of the focus has been on preparing us here in the States on the civilian side for what is an impending large-scale combat operation. You all have heard LISCO, I'm sure, mentioned in your various groups, and I hope you have, because the military is concerned that sometime in the future, there will be an operation whereby we on the state side will have to absorb 1,000 to 3,000 combat casualties, mostly burns, improvised devices, things like that, head injuries for the first 30 days. We'll have to figure out how to place 1,000 to 3,000 patients. But we don't have the infrastructure, nor do we have the load balancing mechanisms in many of our areas to do that. We certainly don't have that in Georgia. I would encourage you, I'll send the link to the group. The American College of Surgeons has conceptualized a regional medical operational command structure. They call it RMOC or MOC for short. And they're really pushing that structure because it helps you with that load balancing piece. Everybody, unfortunately, if you try to get today what your local hospital's bed availability is, they can't tell you how many beds they have available. And when you talk about trying to place patients in the numbers like the thousands, it becomes really impossible to figure out. So somehow we're gonna have to figure out for those centers that have the trauma services, which are gonna be the tertiary care centers, how they can sort of move patients out to other places so they can be ready to accept these patients. So it's a real challenge. Nobody has some people have really good RMOC structures. We just had, unfortunately, we canceled our August commission meeting, but we had Eileen Bolger, who you guys know from our mapping project, and she does some sort of advisory type work for us. She's amazing. We'll have her back in February. But we canceled the commission meeting, so she was at the GQuit meeting and she spoke a little bit to this RMOC structure and what, how Georgia could start to, tap into the infrastructure we have to figure out what does this look like for us and how do we just get prepared? We need to start having the conversations about how we get prepared. Unfortunately, I feel like we're very siloed, it was very hard even for our ACS system console for me to get anybody to come address that from the disaster level here in Georgia. So it was pretty concerning to hear them. It sounds to me like there's a lot of talk back and forth between the COT, between the ACS COT and the military. So that always makes me think they have a heightened awareness that something might happen. So the other thing that I want to mention from the COT meeting is our own Dr. Erica Mabes from Augusta University was sort of the belle of the ball with her rural simulation program. They are in love with that. So they have reached out to her and they want to kind of see what she's doing and get the blueprint for that program. She's already had 8 sites, I think, not actual 8 centers, but she's coalescing sites so that people can come so that, she's reaching more folks. And I don't know how she does it because she's emailing and organizing everything herself in the back while she's on call.
She's kind of like a register.
2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, I can tell you.
Yeah.
That's when I'd get the emails from her.
She's like a nap on crack. But she is just amazing and she's really, really invested and this is her passion.
She's not the fellow that they've got.
She's not, no, she's the attending. Yeah, she's the faculty.
They picked the fellow.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
at our,
He
he
was
was
at
at
yours.
ours in LJ 2 weeks ago.
So talk a little bit about your.
So
she was
we
telling me
had,
about-
I had Jasper LJ, which standalone facility in LJ, Jasper Piedmont, the hospital, and then Blue Ridge Medical Center, which is acute care, standalone facility. We had 32 people there, mainly nurses. I invited representative from both of our helicopter services and each one of those EMS services as well, that all had representation. They've already reached out to me, when can we do that again, so we can get people that didn't come to it in. And just her, the way she comes in, it's a very laid back, down to earth. She's engaged with those individuals from very basic stuff that when I first looked over the PowerPoint, I thought it starts off talking about just a C collar and not on backboard. And I thought, are we really? But after watching those nurses and seeing that, I went, guess it's not so basic, is it? All the way up to doing chest tube, the chest tube placement, the needle placement, doing fast exams, that they bring everything right there and are getting to do it, getting to put their hands on it. And she's going through from start to finish of what that should look like, from coming into that acute care facility all the way to making it to the trauma facility and going through what that should look like. And I attended it. Crystal and I both did, actually. And I was impressed. Very good program. And I've gotten phone calls from the other side of the region. Hey, so we hear you, what's this about? And can we bring it over here? So I was gonna wait actually when we get to I don't know if it's the March pause or what, just kind of talk about that and see what that looks like to be able to do that, so.
I think Dr. Maves being in her jeans and sneakers, showing you how to put a chest tube in is probably what brings it down to.
And that's exactly what she did. She walked in with the monster in her hand and
Yeah.
I think a water bottle in the other hand.
The night before you did your
And
class.
blue jeans and just like she said, and it was just a down to earth. This is the important things and it went really well.
Good.
One of the things we're working on too is a report on how, after her presentation and seeing what it looks like, is how that's directly addressing the needs that were identified in the rural hospital surveys and the EMS educational needs assessment. And she's really nailing a lot of those topics that were addressed in both of those. And again, her presentation was just great. I
Right.
didn't see throughout the entire day, there was never a point where people were on their phones or hugging the walls during the scenarios or any of that stuff. People stayed engaged, and that always means a lot to the class.
And somehow it's not coming across as the level one teaching
It,
the rural.
it absolutely
folks
did
how
not.
to
And
do
I
it,
really
yeah.
don't know what she did to make that environment, but you didn't feel like you were sitting in that environment.
I think she's just asking the right questions about what resources do you have available? What types of patients are you seeing? So, we had a conversation about how to make that, how to keep it relevant because different areas, like
Right.
Crystal said, the data suggests that different areas have different populations of patients, so we need to make it very specific to.
And her and I had a lot of back and forth conversation and with those centers or those facility managers of what they see and problems that they encounter. And that she was able to bring that to the class because she had that foreknowledge of that we had given her that,
Yeah.
it was a very good class.
Good.
So we need to, I know she wants to
Push that.
try to grow it, but we've got to keep her involved and we have to, you hate when something gets to be person dependent, but it's so new and it's still in pilot phase. The good news is she has a 5-year plan to keep it sustainable, which I think is good. And she has other potential funding sources. We'll hear about that at the November commission meeting. So there's lots of buy-in to keep this going. There's potentially even a state office of rural health support piece going. I know it's so hard for them right now because of the federal dollars being so unknown, but,
And the shutdown doesn't help.
oh, yeah. So that, and then, the only other thing is, speaking about the, federal money, the Nita Ham from State Office of Rural Health is working on, I think, the overall plan under the big beautiful bill for the 25 billion that's being distributed across all 50 states. So does anybody here was there anything brought forward from the EMS piece? I think Pete was working on some level. I don't know if he's on the call and wants to speak to that or anybody else.
I know Pete and Chad were engaged in it.
They were engaged and it seems like they were steering that money toward scholarships for initial education primarily.
And all of that's been submitted and we're in phase 2 of the plan as far as how that will be spread out. All of the deadline, I think, was last Friday on part of the submission that we had to do. So the letter had already gone out and that's been done. We've done what we need to this point.
Okay. And then our November meeting will be on, November 20th, the week before Thanksgiving. And, it always coincides with National Rural Health Day, and that is always our focus for that meeting. And, we will be at the State Office of Rural Health in Cordele and celebrating Rural Health Day with them again, I like that tradition. I think it's good because it puts a good focus. And Dr. Maves will be there at that meeting and she's gonna do an update plus present what her 5-year plan is, and we'll figure out, but we have to figure out some way to keep supporting it because it's so successful. So that's it for me, unless there's any questions.
Questions? Is Tim on?
Yes,
Hey,
it
Tim.
is on. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Excellent. So we have a quarterly report. Okay. You'll see that there's some pages of support deliverables in this report, starting out, which indicates there's been a very high level of activity in terms of troubleshooting and coordination and stuff, in this last quarter. In this quarter, we've done a couple of things that are going on. One is we're beginning the transition from MG90s toward the XR series equipment, which means that we're
Tim, I'm sorry to bother you. It's Liz. Are you close to your microphone? Because you're a little broken up. It sounds like it's more of a microphone issue than a connection issue.
Okay, how does this sound? Is this better?
Same.
Same.
Okay. So, we've had some of the issues with the, transition beginning to get all the planning, for pulling, the MG90s that don't require Bluetooth eventually, and replacing them with XR, series units when they wear out or have problems, whatever. And so that planning is going on, and it looks like the driving factor in the timing is when the XR series units will be able to be viewable on the AMM. And it looks like that date is actually going to come about. Supposed to come about in December, but I'm saying I really think it's more likely that's going to happen in January. So that has contributed to a lot of planning and coordination. Second thing is the MG90s, and they're planning to stop manufacturing those. They also ended the security certificate that was in the MG90s that we had deployed, and we had to replace that certificate. And in order to replace that certificate over the air, all of the gateways had to be on the latest version of firmware, which is something that's an ongoing kind of maintenance issue that is done by the agencies and by Semtech over the air. But coordinating that to make sure that we had by September 27th, all of the gateways on the latest version of software so that they could accept the new security certificate before the old certificates closed out on the 27th and our units became unavailable, was an interesting challenge. Semtech did some creative work and managed to get most of it to work, and everything seemed to be going along fine until after we got the new certificates. We began to have some problems with some Southern Link units losing their connectivity, and then some Verizon units intermittently using some. So we're still problem solving all of that. We have a lot of people working on it across the companies. It's not a major issue across our system, but it's an aggravating issue across our system. One of the things we have discovered in the process is that if we replace some of these SIMs in the units with T-Mobile SIMs, we get much better connectivity, and things seems to be working without any problems. I don't know if anybody else noticed any of that sort of thing in their operation or not. Any impact? Okay, we'll go on. So you see all those pages of support deliverables there. Most of those had to do with that kinds of issues that are going on, as well as some ongoing typical kinds of replacement of units and equipment. Then we get to the our total usage for the regions. We see that we've gone from 91% active overall to 86%, and that's attributable a significant amount to this change, but it's also because we're in transition with some of the units leaving and going to AmeriPro, and some of the counties that are beginning to not participate. And so we currently have 1,098 active units out of 1,282, and we're looking at how do we continue to increase that. Region 4, we're going to be working with quite a bit, that's making those transitions there. And then that part of the state is also where the AmeriPro issue is beginning to show up. And if you look at yes, go ahead.
Nobody say anything.
Okay. Next slide is if you look at the map, we've got, you can see which are the agencies that are offline. We hope to be following up with the AmeriPro people this week, this coming week or two, depending on contact. And then also there's a new piece of software that our supplier, PSS Missouri, has developed that we're about to test, which will allow us to bring some of these other data from some of these other systems like Samsara and whatever that are being used by AmeriPro and Grady and others to feed into the same system, so we can have a feed to the state operations center that will show every ambulance, whether it's using one of our gateways or not, as long as it has some kind of a GIS gateway in it, and they all do. So that's one of the things we're working on at the moment. And that software from PSS Missouri will be actually quite inexpensive and solve a big problem for us. I think it could be a major breakthrough. Then on the next page, you can see our airtime. We have about 274 units on Verizon Wireless, and that seems to be continually going down. Southern Link has gone up to 582, and T-Mobile up to 183. AT&T is sitting pretty much where they've been. But I think the T-Mobile is looking more and more promising. There are just more cell towers in the state than Verizon has, and they're also just set aside a system or a way of giving priority to all the public safety accounts. So it works pretty well. You know, we're doing an actual comparison experiment in Whitfield County, and they are finding dramatic improvements with T-Mobile. Okay, and the next slide is where we stand on our current AVLS equipment budget. We have a purchase order that was for $87,000 in last year's money, and we still have about $37,000 left. And you can see the equipment and the prices and what we've been spending on each of the kinds of equipment that we have there. Next page is our current budget as we see it for the whole FY. It was approved at the last meeting, I guess, and I just included it here so we've got it. Got a record of it. And then last page, some kind of key actions. Follow up on bringing the Samsara equipped ambulances into visibility in the State Operations Center, and following up on the new security certificate update, making sure we get all of those bugs worked out of it and get everybody online all the time. And then focus on getting more MG90s back online that we have offline in some of the particularly some of the smaller agencies for various and sundry reasons. And then following up with Semtech regarding the date for visibility on the XR series gateways and when we'll actually begin being able to do that. And we'll be setting up some tests with that equipment as soon as it has access to the AMM. Questions, comments, suggestions, reactions?
And one suggestion, on your slide, the map. And
Yes.
the top of that map says counties without ABLS. And like the AmeriPro, I don't know if you can call it an ABLS, but they have some type of, Wi-Fi connection.
Yes.
So what I would ask you to do, if you can, is put a third color there and highlight the counties that do not have any Wi-Fi connections.
Okay,
And the reason for that is I use your slide in some other talks. And then if that says they got it, but just not part of our system, I think I think most counties have some type of Wi-Fi connection.
yes, yes.
So if you would be willing to do that, I'd appreciate it.
I will do that. Yeah, I will do it and send you a new copy of it, actually. Yeah, they do, and especially what seems to be driving a lot of this is insurance companies are demanding that agencies put cameras in the cab to show the driver. Or to show the accidents or whatever the case, whatever's happening out the front of the truck. And when the insurance companies put that pressure on, then they also say, oh, and here is the solution. You can use this camera and it comes along with this cellular setup. And so these companies have gone and bought this system, even though they got a perfectly good gateway there that they could simply plug into. So that's been part and parcel of the issue. And that's because different companies obviously don't want to share data and so on and so forth, but we are gradually working through that.
Any questions of Tim?
Tim, wasn't there a region that was doing some type of drill that was gonna use the system to look at that drill? Or it wasn't? Did that happen? Crystal says it was Region 2. Did they use that? And if so, how did that work?
Region 2, and I'm not sure how. I need to get a report from the Region 2 coordinator on that. I know that was what their plan was to do, but I didn't see a report yet.
I just know they were talking. I was just curious.
Yeah, yep. I'll find out what it is and share that with everybody. See how that went and see what else the next steps are.
It may be, we have turnovers in regional coordinators. But the regional coordinators are supposed to have access to this to see ambulances in their region. Do
Yes.
they know that?
I know Kyle asked us for permission to access it, but.
Kyle was getting permission for that drill and project that he was doing, but I don't know that any other coordinator has access.
I don't know, have they requested it?
Right, well, when I was the coordinator, I didn't know that was even a possibility.
When
Once
we,
you come to your calls, maybe we can go
The
over
RTAC
that again.
meetings?
Yes, we'll go over that again.
when we set this up, one of the concepts was working with GMA about being able to see ambulances during the disaster. And that wasn't a buy-in, buy-out. If you got the equipment, they could do that.
Yep.
And
Does
so,
GMA know that?
you what?
Does GMA know that?
GMA doesn't have a dog in the fight anymore, but GMA knew that, yes. GMA helped set it up. So, but GMA, I'm pretty sure Peggy knows.
But she's.
So we have the
SMC when anything happens. Yeah, we need to just try
That's
to.
where those silos, I don't know who's talking to who and who knows what.
From my conversations I've had, that's not happening when those things happen. And
I
that's where I was going with this.
I will talk to Michael and find out if they know that, and then Tim, we may need to get a group meeting someplace for them to understand that they have that capability. And that was not a buy-in, buy-out. It wasn't the service gets the equipment, but the bottom line is part of the deal was for disaster preparedness. And that was never set up as an option.
So the regional
Courtney.
go ahead.
Courtney, this is Kelly Dorner. Yes, yes, there are EMS staff and the SOC do know that's an option.
Yes, we've provided logins for all of the regional directors and for the SOC. And this new system we're looking at will make it even simpler for everybody.
So Kelly, I got a little bit of difference between what you said and what Tim said, and that is the regional coordinators. Are they familiar with the fact they can get on this during a local disaster and see where the trucks are?
Well, I think Tim's talking about the RTAC coordinators. That one I'm not sure of. I'm
No, I'm-
speaking
I'm
of the
actually-
regional directors.
I'm talking about the state regional directors. Each of the
Okay.
each of the state regional directors has there's a login for each region.
That's your staff.
Yes, that's my staff.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Y'all talk, and if I need to talk with Michael, I'll be happy to do so. If y'all can work all that out, and I'm not telling them we gotta use it for goodness sakes, but it is a tool in the toolbox that
Oh,
we
yes,
can
sir.
make available to them.
Oh, yes, sir. We know,
Okay.
yeah, they do know that.
Okay,
I think one of the things to remember too with the system is you can see the trucks, you don't know if they're staffed or not.
Or if they're even functional, or if they're even.
They're comments, I mean, they could be at the shop, so it's not that granular, so it takes a human talking to a human to say, what truck do you have and what truck do you use in a disaster? So,
but one thing is if it's not moving over a period of time, you're gonna assume it's not staffed.
Well, and then what we figured out too in Region One, using our DART thing, is they usually send their reserve ambulance that they haven't put this in, and it's the one going, so it's
Yeah.
like that,
There is
wait a
that.
minute, I'm out.
The
It's not.
other thing that we ran
You know.
into, because this was initially set up, we were talking about the evacuation of natives in case of the hurricane. And many of the people, many of the services that are evacuating the coast are non-emergent service who don't have this either. And I guess a full-scale world, if the region, the level 5 hurricane hit the coast of Georgia, a lot of EMR trucks would be in under the national contract, but they wouldn't have it either. But, so it's not the end all, but it's another tool in the toolbox if it can be used.
Well, as I say, one of the things with this new software that PSS Missouri has developed, we be able to ask each agency and each individual company to provide data from whatever system they're using into this system that that PSS has developed, and then we can make that available to each of the regions and to the state operations center so they can see everything. So we're not quite there, but we're getting real close to being able to do that.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any other questions of Tim?
Brian had a question online. He wants clarification that the MG90 does not support rear facing or forward facing cameras.
Okay, I'm sorry, Brian's question was what again?
The MG90 does not support rear facing or forward facing cameras. Is that correct?
Yes, they will. They can be connected. Right now, the MG90s could be connected to those cameras either by Bluetooth, although eventually that will go away. So Bluetooth isn't really the best approach. The best approach would be to just connect them by Ethernet cable.
Thank you for
Ryan,
that.
did that answer your
Yeah,
question?
thank you for that.
Okay.
They got EMS funding update. I don't have any update other than y'all have a.
can I ask one follow-up question, Tim? Tim, does it store that video or is it just live video feed?
I'm sorry, say again.
The question related to the cameras, forward facing or otherwise, does it store that video or is it only live?
It's only live, unless it would, yes, the gateway only provides live data, transmission of live data. Wherever that gets stored depends on whoever's controlling those cameras.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
so if Metro Atlanta wanted to do that, they could they'd have to have a storage system where they stored that data, but it could come through the AVLS gateways.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a slide on the funding update?
I don't think so. We haven't funded it.
Okay, all right. We're continuing with that process. The next two things under, or anything else under standing items before I move on to old business? Any other questions you have?
Or are you gonna do that with,
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Jim's update.
How easily you
Just
forget.
throw something, just throw something at me, wake me back up. People, go more so people can hear you though.
Chairman, just give you a quick update, everything, you should have a, report dated September 25th that, lists all of our, classes and, budgeted and student enrollment and completion. We are on track with the, upcoming classes that we still have to finish out for this fiscal year at, nearly 122,000 contact hours for the fiscal year. We did have a trauma skills lab that was held in conjunction with the trauma symposium in Region 2, and from what Kathy said, we had about 150 pre-hospital and hospital providers that took part in that. We also have the final week of the leadership program, Module 4, that will take place with their graduation the first week of November. And then an instructor preparedness class, 2 mental health classes that are still to be completed, and then also 2 more TECC courses coming up the end of October and then the first part of November. We have started with the continuation on the EMR EMT program, had 13.
We gave out, show in here 14, 15 grants. We contacted the people that had put in for the applications that said they would start their classes within the allotted amount of time that we have for the 25 fiscal year. And sometimes it's like herding kitty cats. Yes, we're ready to start. No, we're not ready to start. So as the people that have not been ready to start, you'll see that's why we've got a few more grants that we've given out. We've reached out to somebody else that said, yes, we can get started. But then down below, you can see the rosters from the ones that we have already gotten started, 10 or 11. And all of the beginning rosters have been also transferred over to Crystal.
But I will tell you, Courtney, and all the members of the subcommittee, is that we hope that we can facilitate this in obviously the most tactful way that we can, but you may get a little bit of blowback from some of your constituents in the regions because we are having to draw a line in the sand. There's a certain amount of time that you can give people and work with them on getting these classes started, but then you get to the point that it actually, there's no way to keep everything on track. So we have had to actually bring some of those grants back in for either non-response or not being able to start class, but we've gotten a little bit harder about requiring them. If they don't report back to us with what their plan is and stick to our project management timeline that we're working on to get that done, at some point you have to fish or cut bait.
So the bottom line is the ones that you have kicked to the curb, whatever term you want to use, are the ones who were not responsive to the grant. You told them, hey, you can have it, and they were not able or not
And
in a position to.
reasons.
What the statement that we had told them is that we put them back in the hopper. So because we've got the money and we want to be as responsible with it as we can to move on and get the next class done. So if you're to the point that, oh, well, next week, well, hang on a second, no, the state's gonna come down and do this next week and they don't make it, and it keeps doing this, then we just say, let's put you back in the hopper, we've got to move to the next one. We've got a responsibility to keep moving.
And typically what that does is that speeds them up to realize they have to get all of their ducks in a row and they come back and we're able to pick back up.
So one of the things I think the committee had wanted to see was when you did that, to let us know which county didn't jump in there, so we would, and a reason why. Couldn't find an instructor, no time, no something, I don't know. And some of them with the older grant monies, they may not have enough local money to make it work. Going forward, I think we're gonna fix it so they won't that won't be a barrier.
And on a lot of those cases too, we're not leaving them out there just stranded on their own. We're trying to help them. If it's an instructor situation or something else that we can help them get in there and get the bushes and figure out, you know, where to fix it, we try to do that.
But if we know that in my region, if we know one of the region, John may get the call, hey, the trauma commission wouldn't give any money for my class. He would be in a better position if he knew that, yeah, well, we offered you the class on this date and, you know, 2 months later, you hadn't got where you could kick it off. So, you know, we had to move on.
Well, in that continuation also, there's 13 classes, you know, there's some questions we have as far as that I would probably get a sidebar conversation with Liz and Katie to figure out the other, out of FY 25 money or how that goes into 26.
Yeah.
Because we're a little bit in a gray area on how to do that.
Yeah.
Other than that, we are moving forward with, a training session, that Crystal and Kathy and myself and Travis and Liz also, I think we were on that last loop, with Natalie and trying to figure out a date, possibly in Middle Georgia, to do that survey 1, 2, 3 training and figure out how we move forward with that.
Okay.
Nothing else. That's my report unless anyone has questions.
So, yeah, let's talk after. Well, I don't want to bog us down with it, but the 25 versus 26 money for those 13 classes, that's an important piece to figure. Because we budgeted on on last year's fiscal year. So I want to make sure everybody understands that just because we upgraded this year doesn't mean that it's retroactive. Okay. Any questions of Kim?
Not a question, but a comment. I wanted to thank everybody for their efforts around reopening the grants for the EMT programs. As I've been going through the roster to getting them in med ed prep, it's an extra 199 EMT students that are enrolled because you guys extended the grants. That's huge for our workforce. So I know it's been kind of a heavy lift for you guys and doing this a second time. I just wanted everybody to kind of acknowledge it's really impactful for the profession.
And just
So
as,
thank you.
just as a follow-up to that too, we realized, you know, that some issues with med ed prep and some things that we just really needed to do more education on that. But we do have a session during the conference next week to actually go over with instructors med ed prep, because again, there were a lot of the instructors out there that came back to us and they felt like this was some punitive measure on them. And I think that there's a lot of clarification that can be done to clear that up and build on what we have now. Just, I think some of them now are starting to understand a little bit more of that. So we do have that session scheduled at the conference on the first day on the 14th.
Is that session by chance gonna be recorded?
I had not thought about it, but that's a good idea, and I probably do have time to get that done,
I
so.
think that would be
I
valuable.
think that would be good if you throw it on.
I think so too.
What we're working on.
I'm gonna do the first talk and tell them it's my fault. Should I come armed?
Yep.
Should I
The whole committee needs to vocally support this. Anytime you're using taxpayer funds for something like that, there has to be some kind of mechanism to demonstrate value and that you're, you know, that all programs, that it's incumbent upon us then to make an effort to fix where the gaps are. And without that, we don't know. And you need people who have the stance that they want to participate at that level and make things better. So.
And my goal has never been punitive, never been to point people out and make them feel embarrassed, but my goal is to figure out what the barriers are to success and then try to chip away at those barriers. So
And we don't, and just to follow up to that too, that we don't currently have a videographer set up for any of the sessions as it stands now. But again, if we were able to do that, and I could probably pull that off, because we've got somebody that I think could be there to do it, would there be possibility for some funding to cover the cost of getting that recorded?
We could use some money from our committee.
we can figure it, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we can do that. As long as, you know, try to keep really high quality, really cheap, and I know. So,
High quality is.
yeah,
Do those two fit together?
No, they don't.
Kim, I can put you in touch with Kyle and, he does a great job.
Please, if you will send me the contact.
I will.
have
His name's Kyle Payne, and he's really does a great job and really good to work with, so I'll shoot you that.
If y'all get that recorded,
Well, we can put it on train for free, but it's easy access, everybody in the state has access to it, so that's easy. That'd be great.
Yeah.
I think Kyle's gonna be your cheap but high quality guy and he can set up really.
And just as easy to work with as anybody, I mean, he's just great.
I need some of that.
Okay,
You're right.
anything else that I forgot?
Yeah, brought in something.
You're back on target
Yeah,
now.
keep me straight, keep me straight. So the equipment grant we did last meeting and that has now been, that's deferred, the equipment. The education work group is not Scott's group, it's the group that we've been working with, the UGA. So there's not there. The blood utilization committee, Chad is not able to be here today. He said that Crystal and Lee could tag team that and give us the update on where they're at. I think.
Go ahead, Luke.
I know.
Introduce
I ain't ready, Mr. Chairman. I ain't ready, Mr. Chairman. So here's the deal. That report was sent to you and the report really speaks for itself, but therefore,
I'd like to introduce Crystal, who's gonna present the report.
so
Okay,
Crystal, could you come up here and microphone?
Yeah, so we've had, several phone calls, a couple of meetings, to discuss what a grant parameter might look like. And, so the document that's sent out was a combination of the grant parameters as discussed by that committee with some feedback from our RTAC coordinator group. The equipment that we've received quotes for, and then the education component that's gonna go along with it. So while we can set the grant parameters, we can provide plenty of templates for education. What we cannot do as a work group is to get them connections to the actual blood product. I think that we can serve the rest of it up to our applicants as a package to kind of make it easy for implementation, as easy as we can. But there's so many factors that are gonna go into that relationship with the blood bank, whether it's through a hospital, a private blood bank, or anybody else who's gonna get on product, that we just can't mitigate that. So you won't find that information in the document. However, we are gonna work on a repository of contact information on, people who work with a hospital blood bank or a private blood bank, the contact information for Life South or Red Cross or whoever it is that they might use. So other than that, the recommendations from the work group, again, they're outlined here, but a designated zone provider or a licensed ALS medical first responder agency, support from medical direction, support from the either county manager or chairman for financial support for the ongoing cost of the product, participation in their RTAC, the Performance Improvement Committee. Gabby, will you scroll down a little bit? So I won't a partnership, a formal letter of agreement with the blood bank, and I think there's one more thing below it. The financial commitment, participation in community partnerships. We put in there as well for everybody who participates should organize at least one blood drive in their community per year. And then submitting performance improvement information to the committee that'll have oversight over the project. So I think that it was a pretty, I don't know, I think that we're gonna be able to narrow down the people who are serious and ready to implement. But there's certainly gonna be obstacles, but there's enough experience on that work group that I think that we can help people overcome the challenges that they're gonna face. Happy to have Lee answer any questions.
Yeah, no, and I think one of the things, Courtney, you brought up one day, is there's a lot of experience on that work group. And I think there are gonna be comments and barriers that we can anticipate. One you brought up was that you had heard that a community wanted to put blood on every ambulance. I don't think any of us would agree to that, because that's waste. That's waste. That's the best way to say it. And then I think,
afford it.
Right.
yeah, and I think they're speaking, uneducated at best on that, because they don't want to know the expense, and we don't want to have, I don't think anybody on that group, I know nobody on that group wants any blood to go to waste. And so we got to be careful that we oversaturate. That's the best way to say that. There will be cases where blood will need to be turned back in and plasma can't be, but we need to minimize that even as much as possible, basically. And so those are the things that are hard to put into a document. You just have to look at the data, basically. And anybody that's doing a program or is working to start a program, starts to understand that pretty quickly. It's the folks that have never done a program and never started a program that say, oh, I want to put blood on every whatever. It sounds great, but it's not feasible or realistic.
Well,
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about giving some priority to those that are gonna be a regional hub. That, you know, the community that I live in has blood product available, but they'll also serve the counties on the other side of the trauma center. So I think that that's an important kind of, as the work group looks at these applications, when they come in for financial support, we can prioritize those that are gonna have a really large catchment area.
And then the cold chain requirements are significant and, are not overburdensome, but they're significant. And you've got to be committed to that.
And Dr. Boone had volunteered to join the work group to help with the connectivity issues that people are inevitably going to experience.
Right.
so two things. Would it be worthwhile to try to have a 1 day or half day? I'm not making you mad, am I?
I'm just
That's
getting,
why
I'm
she's
just,
going into
I'm just
that.
getting prepared.
Just getting ready.
Just getting prepared.
Day,
Yeah.
we are one
Yeah.
day.
I'm just getting prepared.
Already shaking.
I'm just thinking it's really hard to get this knowledge out without going to Chipstick or someplace like that, having some of the physicians talk and have some of the folks who have done it talk and say, here's the fault, here's the hard bumps. And this is what you can expect or not can't expect, and just put that out there. Would that be?
I don't think it would take a full day. I think you could do
I think we could do a WebEx.
I agree with you. I think you
Yeah.
could do a 1 to 3 hour, I don't know what you could call it, something something cool. You know, lunch and learn is overused nowadays, but
Right.
you could do something, blood intro basics or something. You know, don't you think 1 to 3 hours?
Lessons learned, yeah, tips and tricks.
Yeah.
But even with
Yeah.
that, the RTech coordinators are having those conversations now as we speak with those, of kind of waiting on this document, if you will, and having those conversations within our regions of what this looks like, even to the point of me of sitting down with different ones and already starting to look at how we can work 3 counties together to keep from wasting that blood and looking at those things so I think the coordinators are sitting there to be able to use them as well towards this project of having those conversations and using that as well on top of maybe doing the WebEx.
And it might be better to do it on WebEx, but do you feel comfortable with the RTAC coordinators knowing enough about nuts and bolts, the logistics of this to do that?
I'm not gonna speak for every one of them because there's a couple that are new that I haven't had the opportunity but for the most part, I do.
And if the coordinator specifically is not, then somebody inside that RTAC is. You know, maybe it's the TPM at for the local trauma center, or we've got resources. You know, the RTACs have really come a long way in all of our regions. They're a robust resource now. And we've also got the EMS educators who I'm sure would be happy to participate in the training and will be required as a part of the PLS to engage. So I think that we've got regional assets that are available. If we find some regions that don't have that support, then there's plenty of us from the work group who can step in, or other RTAC coordinators who will be happy to come help people implement projects like this. And again, it's not new, and that's what the work group kept going back to is there's a lot of obstacles, but for years we have had blood on ambulances in the state. So we can help people navigate it.
Yeah, my personal fear is that I'd rather us go slow and methodical.
Yeah.
It sounds real sexy. We could have a big black eye if we do this wrong.
Right.
And we can have a big waste if we do it wrong.
And that would be a big black.
And that would be a big black eye.
I have a question about so you're talking about having that, go back up to 5, talk about the blood bank.
Can you come up, because folks online will not be able to hear you.
Well, so I was just gonna ask, is there a template that's gonna be with working with the blood bank, having that, do y'all have a template set up? Cause I was on a national work group. One of the problems that they were kind of figuring out is what does the blood bank need from me to get this started? And
I think it depends on the blood bank.
Depends on the blood bank.
Yeah.
But I feel
Yeah.
like talking nationally, like there are a few core things
I think I've got some
that
answers.
they go back to in reference to ABBA with, so like, being able to have that template to provide to them and say, hey, like, here are the top 5 things that you're really gonna need. And is there a template that y'all started or thought about being able to provide?
I think that's a great question, but I literally, and I can only speak from my personal experiences, it depends on the blood bank.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I really do.
Yeah. And it's going blood bank, region, state.
But there's protocol templates that we can provide, education templates that we can provide, all that will be customized for their specific needs and resources. So that'll kind of be a part of, here you go.
So I'm very driven about the message being consistent across the regions. So I'll leave that up to you to make sure that that is delivered consistently by the RTAC coordinators.
Okay.
All right? Okay, so we get this information out. Then the ones who are interested, we may try to have a meeting with everybody interested and explain it. I don't know. May do a webinar so that people can understand it. I'm going to ask the committee, Jed's not here, so I can ask him, to work now on an application with the concept that the application will be scoreable. So it may be a competitive. If we have talked about 25, we put $250,000 into that. That's the math's pretty easy. But I'm not sure that $10,000 per will do it. Don't know. But the other
I thought it was,
10,000 is really a drop.
It'll get you started a couple sets of equipment.
My point being, it needs to be competitive.
Yeah.
We need to figure out how much it will cost, and that might be based on a budget they present as part of the application. You'll go back to these and talk, I'll talk to Chad about making sure he understands what I'm trying to do. But I want now for us to be able to send that out, anybody that's interested, and fill out an application and fill out at least an initial, we're interested in it. And then they can start working on those things that they need to have to even apply. And the first thing is the physician signing off on it, medical director saying, yeah, support it.
I think I don't know if it's this group or the subcommittee or a different part of that subcommittee. I think you need to look at the oversight of it. And I'm not trying to pick it apart, but it's, if you put 10 out there, well, if you put 25 out there, 10, it's gonna take some oversight.
was it 10 for $25,000 or was it 25 for $10,000? I thought it was 10 for 25.
It's $250,000.
Right, okay.
And I don't think I've heard it consistently.
Well, that's why I was at it.
Yeah.
The quotes that I received was a $10,000 startup grant that would cover the Delta coolers, the Cure and Flow warmers, and a handful of drip sets. So with the quotes and a bulk purchase, we would be able to support 25 programs with that equipment. That doesn't include product, it's just financial requirements.
And I would tell you from personal experience, there is absolutely nothing wrong with the cooler system you're talking about, but that cooler system is gonna take far more oversight than a more expensive cooler. Because it begins with taking the cold pack out of the freezer and allowing it to settle, acclimate, whatever the technical term is. Yeah. So there's not a problem with it, but it just requires much more oversight.
I'm sitting right here, we got $250,000 for the blood. And I very much appreciate your comment about take it slow, do it right. I absolutely agree with that concept. I'm not a rush. Unless, of course,
You're gonna get a lot of applications because it's sexy. Maybe that's not the right term, but it's cool. It's cool. Maybe that's a better term. It's cool.
In all honesty,
The sense that there needs to be like local, I don't think if you give them all the money, then there's no like local buy-in for sustainability, so that's
Well,
huge.
I do agree with that, but I also agree with, in some of these counties, local buy-in, local finances just won't
But
be
then,
there.
well, then, I mean, if you can't
You can't sustain it long-term from
Can't
the
do
trauma
it.
commission.
Yeah.
I get that,
I
and
don't-
that's the letter that they require from the county manager or the chairman of the board of commissioners. That requires them to say, we will support this financially. So I'm not, at least the equipment, that sort of thing initially, I think the grant should pay for. But I'll let the committee talk about that. But after that, there needs to be a commitment that they will buy the blood sets and the equipment and that sort of thing.
I think there needs to be a data component that looks from the trauma commission side, that looks at the feasibility of it. If it's going to a community that the data supports one blood utilization every 60 days, that county needs to understand their expense is gonna be in the 28-day window or less.
There's a way to regionalize it. I mean, we can sit here. and
100%
talk about
agree.
it, Talk about it 6 ways to Sunday, but I think, yeah, I think.
There's a way to regionalize it, but it takes commitment from whatever that region is, whether it's two
I don't
communities,
know
whatever.
how, I think that there's more of a hurdle with the regionalization than most countries are thinking. Because first of all, you're talking about the cost of it. Well.
And then the application of it.
And you know, we can't just add blood on our bill, but whoever's gonna get paid for that's gotta be the transporting agency. So somebody QRVs it from one county to another truck.
And then the QRV's got the expense.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure that there's a way around it, but it's gonna be.
So y'all got your work in progress.
And I think every region and every community is gonna have a different.
Yeah.
It's gonna have a different look.
Yeah.
Yes.
That what's gonna work where you're at, it's not gonna, may not work
Yeah.
where.
And density plays into it too.
Right.
Yeah. And ultimate destination too.
And medical director.
Yeah.
You know, the whole area, you got 3 counties of the same medical director, it's not a problem, but you go from one to the other, you got different protocols to follow.
I just think we need to go slow.
Yeah, and if you're gonna do regionalization, then it has to be a regional protocol. I can't see if I'm handing off a blood product to another agency, that they're utilizing a different protocol than I am. That would create a nightmare. Okay, any other questions before we send it back to them to try to smooth out the rest of this? Okay, all right. Education Improvement Committee, Scott.
All right, well, I didn't have a document to put up there. I would say that right now, we have pretty much been what I would call a discovery phase, but.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I will say that the state office, Heather really gave us very invaluable, data, that helps us to look at, programs individually. And, you know, what the problems aren't universal. So we're trying to identify what are the things that we can, put together to help the vast majority of people. But we are all gonna be at the conference next week, so we are gonna have an in-person meeting, which I'm very glad about. But some of the things that we are looking at is, making sure that the information that is gathered at conferences and meetings and so forth, are distributed to everybody to a certain repository, such as the Trauma Commission site, website, so they can post that, for us. So we're looking at doing that. Also, we're gonna tap in another thing that KISPA has coming up is the ability to do podcasting. And maybe utilize some of that to be able to have some information sharing throughout the state through that. Short term, we're looking at the post-course instructor surveys, identifying high-performing programs that are going to share the materials or some tricks of the trade that we could put in our repository as well. And, well, another idea that came out of the last meeting we had was to possibly have a quarterly instructor support WebEx sessions that any programs that are trauma funded would have to, in that. And through that, we can identify what the barriers are, what resources they don't have are, so we can look at getting them that. One thing we have to decide is who's gonna be hosting those moving forward as we go, through time, over the years. And then the long term is to continue to use the data that we get back from the classes to change future curriculum and teaching strategies. I think that one of the big things that the state just recently put out on train already with the test taking strategies, who was that? Jenny Weatherby did. We want to make sure that these programs aren't just giving that to their students, hey, watch this, but actually do it instructor led. So that's one thing we want to try to encourage them to do, getting the points out of it and then be able to emphasize some of the key points of that. I think that's very valuable. And they're doing a 3-session,
Two sessions.
2 sessions for part 1, part 2 at the, coming up. I mean, that may be, I know it's already videoed on train, but I wonder if it'd be worth videoing that, if it'd be anything different. What do y'all think?
It is different, I will say that, like, so they've been working on it the past 2 months, trying to get together, so it's not the same lecture that she's given and heard on train. It's very much, more instructor-based learning, kind of showing how to take that class, what she's taught, and implement it within their program. So it is different, it's not the same thing.
I'll be open to, video on that. I think that anything that we can start gathering like that, I think is really, really good.
No, it's day 2 in the educator front.
So it'll be the same day, so if maybe not, well, maybe.
That's, day one is the first one we want to video, day 2 is Jenny and.
So if you want that out, you're not doing
I think that would be good. Anything that we can get, but then start putting this stuff out there that's available. But I think that it's not something that, my personality is when I'm given a task, I like to get it done as quick as I can. This is something that's gonna happen. It's gotta evolve. We gotta get together. I think, Madison's is a big resource for us. And because, I think her probably reaching out to you and saying, I didn't have the resources that I needed. She did a good job. Her rate was good. That rate was good. But I think having her as our kind of test dummy to know what kind of resources she was needing that didn't have. And, so that's, everybody's from our last meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago to the next week, have had the information that Heather has got. I had it previously to that to go through, but I shared it with them in the last meeting. And, so they all been going through that so that we can kind of get together in person and say, let's tackle this, and we're going to put it all here. And then they'll notify the instructors how we're going to be notified the instructors. Kathy, if you help do get us information, from these programs as well.
So y'all got a budget of $60,000.
Yeah.
And one of the things I was interested in trying to figure out is, and they do a great job with the initial education instructor, but it's a week.
Well, that's one thing that I guess I failed to mention, and the last time when we had our reading as on my update is, we've kind of taken and deferred that. The state office of EMS is already working on extending the instructor course back to the way it used to be. I hate to call it.
Where it used to be a week.
Yeah, well, going back to like a 2-week model.
I never remember a 2-week model.
Well, it's not gonna be a 2-week month.
Oh, it's not?
It'd be 1 week.
It used to.
So it's gonna have a prerequisite requirement prior to class, similar to what Daniel does now.
Okay.
They're gonna have to do something before class, and then they'll come for the week, and get their in-person, lectures and skill-based stuff.
So there you go.
Okay.
So they are enhancing it. I mean, and also, I mean, since the instructor, certified instructor comes from a state level, off the EMS, I think that, Richard is taking that more serious and is expanding that, because he sees that needs to be, be worked on, it needs to be more added to it. I think also, I mean, if you go through and you look at the way the state has laid everything out, and what's required with, the mentorship stuff that you put through mentor, but the bad thing is nobody's there to oversee that. And I don't, you can have a great program, which they do, but if people don't follow it, then you start getting weaker results out of it. So I don't know who's gonna be the mentor police, but I mean, I'm saying we need to encourage people to do it the way that the state has laid out. Because I think if you do that, you'd be much more successful.
Mhm.
If that makes sense to you.
It does, it does. So y'all are gonna come back with a recommendation for an improvement to the initial education course.
Well, Richard and Heather are on my committee. So I might, we're kind of understanding, we're gonna have that information right there, what they're doing. And then we could have input, say, consider adding this to it as well. I think that us being there working together now, I think it's a good thing that help. If listen to what we're saying, what we're finding out is good, excellent information to add to the program that's in development.
Okay.
Do you have any idea on when that's supposed to launch or anything?
They're in the process of getting it scheduled, getting the date scheduled down now. I don't know exactly on the week when you speak like right now, but I know that they're in the process of nailing down those weeks.
Does that help?
The one thing about it is that, that's gonna be for the next group of instructors that are coming out. So it's gonna, what would be a year or so if we start seeing results of what the changes did,
Well, I talked to a few instructors, across the state, and they've already expressed interest in, hey, even though I'm already instructed, I think I wanna go through this, because the same thing you're saying, like, they started the program, they got through it, and then they realized, oh, wait, I'm not fully prepared now, and now they're kind of stuck, right? They're trying to figure out, how can I continue to how can I make this successful while I'm trying to learn myself? And so a lot of them, I think we're gonna have who are already certified instructors that are like, hey, I need to go through this so I can get back what I do.
Yeah, and a lot of this, the data that Heather was able to share through the post course, it's actually their annual
reports.
annual reports that they have to submit. And there was a lot of these instructors that realized, I did this wrong. I'm gonna change this and put it in there. It's very valuable what they sent, and many of them took a lot of work time to put together the report. And they're gonna make those changes for the next class. So I'm hoping that by doing these reports, that they're saying, okay, yeah. Was there an action plan? That's one thing I thought about.
Yeah, there's an action plan as a part of that annual report.
And I wonder if that's something, corrective action, like how they could increase their success.
That's
Okay.
that's.
So that's one thing I think would be valuable for us with these
Yeah,
programs.
it's kind of a 2-point thing with the annual reports. It gives them the ability to evaluate themselves, to evaluate their program, and then it gives us to be able to look at it and see, okay, hey, like, I see you wrote down you need help. Here's a resource that maybe they didn't know they even had out there. And so we can use those annual reports to help guide them into resources.
And is that active reading?
Oh, yeah.
With all the different readings, that's good. I mean.
Yeah, and I think what the group has recognized is that completing an initial education program to become a new instructor does not make you ready to be a new instructor. Time in the classroom as an adjunct or having a mentor watch you lecture and provide feedback. I was fortunate to have that. And I think that very often we develop an instructor and then we're like, hey, you got a license, go teach a class.
Yeah,
I do want to
That
add
happens a
something
lot.
new that we added recently at the state level. And this would be good for y'all to know too. So when a brand new program puts in, I want to teach a class, and they've never taught before, they have to go through a pre-designation meeting with me now. And so that designation meeting includes, so during that application, they upload a mock schedule of what they're anticipated, their handbook, their syllabus, everything like that. I look through it and I set up a virtual meeting with them that includes the program director, all of the staff, the medical director, and their advisory committee. Because we're trying to make sure that the program is set up, and I have a series of questions that I'm asking them to make sure, hey, do you know what you're getting into, and are you fully prepared to make sure that not only you're successful, but making sure these students are successful? I think we talked about it before, like, if you can put 25 people through a classroom, none of them pass registry, then you just essentially put them through a class. And so the goal is to put 25 people through a class and graduate 25 people as EMT or higher level.
I guess my problem with all of that is if you're looking at the areas that I at least are targeting in rural Georgia, they oftentimes don't have anybody to be their mentor.
Right, there is.
It's few and far between. So if that's the case and we make it not doable for them, then we have not solved their problem. Now, you know, it's been a long time since I've taught day in and day out, but I remember teaching class that was 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Alana Mercer Cobb walked in the back door, sat down, and she listened to me a little bit while she was looking at my syllabus and lesson plan. And then she got up and left. She called me the next day, said, "You were where you're supposed to be, doing what you're supposed to do." That doesn't go on anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not throwing anybody up under the bus, because I was doing the job. But if I had a discussion with, in Region 9 one time, I went and talked to them about workforce development. And when the guys came up to me and was talking, this was a tech school program in Region 9. He said, "I got 2 instructors. Take it out of one guy, you're gonna learn everything you need to know about NASCAR. Take it out of another guy, you'll be an expert in deer hunting. And you might not be a good student, I don't know." So that sort of thing goes on. And one of the things I'd like to see is us find a way to see to it that goes away. That whoever's teaching it, Madison's a great example, and she's very, very smart. She loves the profession, and if you could clone her across the state, we wouldn't have a problem. But anyway, that's my story, I'm sticking to it.
We're working on, hoping by the next meeting, we have some, more to report that is the actions that we've taken, but, it's, every program's different, and like you said, I mean, I thought a lot about that, South Georgia somewhere, and they got one person, everybody there to be able to mentor them, and the person before them probably wasn't mentoring either. So, but maybe we can come up with some, some people who are close to that region, or maybe even the training coordinator for the region, maybe and facilitate some of that mentoring.
All right, any questions? Okay, March Pause Initiative, we continue to work at it. Liz and Dr. Ashley were the last 2 who got videoed. I got 2 more I want to get on get video clips before we make the first 2 or 3 videos. Dr. Maves and Dr. Register have agreed to do the videos on the March Pause class. Hopefully by November 20th, when we meet down there, that will have been done. And then we just need to kick off that class. It initially, we've been working on this forever in 2 days. Dr. Maves, when she did her presentation down at Galloway Gardens, I mean, that was just, she does a great job. So we're trying to find a way to mesh what we are doing in with her. In fact, what she's doing now is utilizing some of the March Pause funding. So trying to get up another conversation with her so she can get the rest of her money so that she can continue doing what she's doing. So.
Are those 2 programs where they could be?
That is
that
the desire. The initial desire of March Pause, from my perspective, was your point well taken a while ago. You said, well, they were talking about basic stuff, but then you look at the nurses and they didn't know it.
Right.
So we're hospital based. So we're in the ER with them, and you ask them to put on attractions, but they don't know what it is. It's not because they're not smart. It's not because they're not great nurses. It's because that's not part of their training, not part of their curriculum. So we're trying to get, there's a lot of things that they know in and out, but medics do. So the goal would be to put all 3 of the physicians, the medic and the nurse, in the same room, just like Dr. Maves is doing. I want to call ours March Pause 101, and maybe hers March Pause PhD. I don't know. But the goal is to get them interested and in place. And then what we're envisioning right now, our part of March Pause would be about 4 hours. About two or three of those would be lecture, and then scenario based, working with them. IOs that your medics use every day, not a big deal to them. You put it in front of a brand new nurse.
Well, that's what happened the other day, and that's a part of that is that there's an IO still
Yeah.
patient, and
Yep.
it was like 4 hits.
Yep. So the bottom line is there's gaps in that, but the biggest gap that I'm trying to is a communication gap. I've done talk for a long time that said the ER door, there's something about an ER door. There's a world outside of it and there's a world inside of it. And that's a communication issue. It is huge in some areas of South Georgia on a transportation issue. We'll get you inside that ER door, but oh heck no, we're not gonna take you out of that ER door. You know, we're input, not outflow. So I'll run by it right quick because I was gonna talk about it anyway. A few weeks ago, they talked for a health committee on rural needs and internal medicine. And they asked me to come talk about EMS. And I tend to tell it like it is, okay? And I ended up telling them, we did this thing with Senator Jeff Mullis a long time ago. And we came up with a whole litany of problems that we needed to solve. None of them got solved. I told them to help us fix two things. Help us fix the EMS education piece because it's broken. Then help us get paid for what we do. And I said, if y'all can solve those two problems, we'll solve the rest. And my Terry Cobb's not here, so I'll pick on him. Within 2 miles of Terry Cobb's shop is a technical college. But Terry's doing EMT classes all the time. And he's a great proponent of the initial education piece because he's seen it work. In Emmanuel County, in all honesty, if it had not been for our pop-up courses, us doing it ourselves, we wouldn't be in business today. I'm not being facetious. They just wouldn't be there. So anyway, I'll send anybody asks for it, shoot me an email. I'll send you my slide set that I used to talk to those folks. The guy Leo from the House staff came up to me afterwards, said, well, you said what needed to be said. Anyway, so any other questions for me about any of that? So EMS education budget allocations, what we have to do today, we've actually voted on the budget. We've approved the spend plan. So we gave that spend plan to GIMSA and asked them to come up with a scope of work to match that spend plan. And that was sent out to y'all, right? So what I'm interested in right now is reviewing that spend plan. Before I go any much farther, I'm gonna talk about Terry's concern and how, because he sent out something, I think, last night or this morning. I called him and talked to him yesterday. I didn't know he was not gonna be here, but I asked him to send ideas if he had any. Jim and them have worked hard, Kim and Kathy, probably more Kathy than Kim. On the scope of work, there's one thing in there that I've questioned and they answered my question, but I'm gonna give them a chance in just a minute to address what they did. Terry's concern was that in our scope of work that we presented, there were less initial classes rolled out. And that's a direct result of what Terry initiated a meeting or two ago, where he wanted the classes to be funded better so that the rural services who could fund it better. So they didn't have to go in their pockets. And he thought that would remove a barrier to a lot of the rural services providing courses. And I absolutely agree. So, but he did want to change the spend plan again to like 700,000 to do 50 classes. And there's two problems with that. One, changing the spend plan, but then change the scope of work. Changing the scope of work would mean that we wouldn't get it done by budget by the time the budget ends, and that I don't consider that a viable option. I don't. That's me. The other piece of that, if we budget the full thing for the full 50 classes, then we're gonna have a bunch of money left over again, and we have to figure that out. So I talked to Terry probably 40 minutes on the way up here, and here's my suggestion to him, and he was okay with it. That we'll vote on the spend plan today, if everybody's okay with it. Or we'll vote on it one way or the other, vote yes or no, but we'll vote on the spend plan. So we're gonna be working on survey 1, 2, 3 in the next few weeks. Survey 1, 2, 3, if it's even half as powerful as I think it is, at any given time, we'll be able to go on survey 1, 2, 3 and look at initial classes, and they put in the budget numbers over the bottom right-hand corner, we know how much residual money we have. Does that make sense? Cause they have budgeted for the maximum. The budget in there is that many classes being taught at the EMT level. Is that right? Okay. So if I do an EMR, obviously it's not gonna count, not gonna cost anywhere near that much. Or if I do an EMT and there's 14 participants versus 25, then right off the bat, you save the book money and all of that stuff. There's certain things that are fixed costs, instructor cost is fixed, books vary by the number of students. So what my commitment to him was that what we would do is on the scope of work. And then as soon as they start giving out the classes or assigning the classes, when we get to the point that we know we can fund more, we will go ahead and fund more. That if we have residual money across the board in any of the programs that we do, then we would use that residual money to do initial classes until we hit either a saturation point or those 50 classes that he thinks we should be doing. Now, did I say anything that's tremendously confusing?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Will whatever be written to give them, I think they got,
Would you put that in the minutes that?
well, I had a Snickers bar. That's what allowed me to say that, so, I had two actually.
Anybody else need, if anybody be nice to them, have all of them on the chair. There you go.
You had one.
Just one.
Just another thing.
Just one. I'm done. Courtney timed that well.
Put that in the minute.
So I think there was some point of contention in the past about them doing extra classes or moving money. So are we gonna write it so that that's not an issue going forward for the association?
What I would like,
Cause it makes perfectly good sense. If you're
what,
budgeting for 25, you got 10,
yeah.
use that money, the next class money.
Well,
One other class.
what I want us to be able to do is look at survey 1, 2, 3. And when that money comes available, even, you know, we might not do it for every class, but when they get a certain pot of money, they can, and we may have to do a conference call. But until everybody gets to feeling good about this, then I want the group to vote on it. The survey 1, 2, 3 will give us transparency, so everybody will know what's going on. They can put on there that we gave a class to Emmanuel County. The budget was $14,000, does that sound right? But they're doing an EMR, so they're not gonna spend this is how much it's gonna cost for the instructor, this is much for the books and all that. And just a line across here for Emmanuel County. And on the right-hand side, the math will be there so that if they're buying less books, that money will show up as residual money. Does that make sense? Have I said anything to make y'all mad yet? Okay. Chris, have I said anything to make you mad yet?
It sounds like the
I had a couple
school back.
questions, but not bad.
I still have time, right?
That's right, exactly.
So. Comments or questions?
The one thing that I would like to mention that it was it was actually noted in the chart under the EMR EMC category. But one of the things that we've gotten a lot of feedback about is the fact that we were at the lowest level of the material that we purchased, that's purchased for the class for EMR EMT. So a lot of times you had the services that were going with another option because they would either want a QR code for testing and different things. So you'll see that there is an increased figure in there from 175
The
to
two-
260 something, I believe. And that it tells you what's in that packet, which is the book, QR code. I think a workbook was part of that also. But it's something that's some data that we collected over time where we knew that a lot of the instructors were not using the minimal option that we were providing them and needed something more than that. So that it was one of the changes that we added.
We bumped the ability of the books to maybe help the students. I think we went with the advantage package where we were going with the bottom of the line package.
Yeah, we're gonna
And
try,
some-
right?
something else that we have been discussing in the instructor meetings that we've been.
Did y'all see anything there that concerns y'all on handling it?
I think what I'm most curious about is how are you gonna determine who's approved for those EMT classes? I mean, we're already hearing feedback about who was not approved for this initial or the second round of them this time, as I'm sure you guys have too.
Right. and-
So if we're gonna do half the classes that we have in the past, who's gonna make that determination? Is that gonna come to the committee to vote when these come in quarterly, or, I don't know, I just think that's gonna be a point of contention if every other person who applies gets declined.
What
That's
I
what
mean,
it is half.
Do what?
declined, do they? If they don't meet the metrics on the timeframe is when they get declined, and
Go from 50 classes to 28.
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking.
I think we'll do a lot more at 28. I think we're probably gonna hit 35 or 40 with, I think.
And I'll tell you that.
But
at
I
least-
think we will do that two ways. One, because residual money there and residual money in the other programs that we'll push in there. But your point's well taken. There needs to be some metrics about how we pick this service versus that
Just
service.
clarity on the process for people that
But-
they plan to do their classes every fall or whatever.
But I will tell you this about my profession. Given an opportunity, we will whine about something.
And take
So you're
it
talking
back
about
to-
the fire side now, that's what you did, right?
I'm talking about both sides.
Yeah, that's
That's
right.
all the above.
All the above.
Established to be a rural, to help the rural areas. So based on how many ambulances you have running in your unit, plus if you have a hospital in your county. So that's how the last.
Are
I
those
really
metrics
hadn't
published
turned
for
anybody down
services to
yet.
know?
So, okay,
Are those metrics published for services to know? I
uh,
just hadn't heard that before, so I was
it's
curious.
probably not
That's
published,
part of the application.
yeah, it's probably not published because I hadn't turned anybody down.
I was gonna say,
In the
we
past
had to
years.
actually get everyone who had applied, at least
Yeah.
up until the last fiscal year, everyone that had applied for a grant.
Right.
Got
Yeah.
Which is awesome, and that's something to celebrate, but if we're going down to 28 classes with the initial wave of it, that wouldn't be the case anymore.
Well, I think too, though, correct me if I'm wrong, that we 28 for this budget cycle, but there's already how many that are already going, because we're crossing,
13.
we're crossing them.
Across the budget.
But I think I would ask y'all to develop, this is how we look at it.
Right.
Okay,
Criteria.
and we may end up sending it to Scott's committee to discuss. But I do want us to be completely transparent on what we do and how we do. But it was, Crystal, it
A
was,
lot of times we get these programs that they get awarded the grant and they don't have a program established. And then they're calling us, like, wanting us to hurry up, and then we have to hurry up and wait. And then we get there and they're actually not ready, and it's pushing y'all, it's pushing us, and I don't know, if maybe a metric of, are you truly, like, putting some questions in there. Are you ready to teach it? And if that makes sense, like, do you have a certified instructor ready to go? Do you have equipment that's required for the minimum equipment list? Those things.
I'm wondering, since we're doing it, we're not doing just on a yearly, in other words, are you planning a class in the next year? Could we put out applications quarterly? Say, if you're preparing to start a class in the next 3 months, apply for this grant. And then roll that out every 3 months. That way we've got more of a target of who's gonna start. Cause we got applications of people putting in that said they didn't wanna start until April of next year.
well, I think the other point well taken is if they haven't got approval from the state to do a class, why are they applying? The state needs to come in and say, hey, you got an instructor, these qualifications, you got the equipment, you got the space, whatever. And I would think that it would be appropriate after all of that. But of course, I can see their point, well, I'm not gonna do all that work unless I know I got a grant, so.
It's hard on both sides, but like our work as spring coordinators, we've gotten busy, and so like, we try to be accommodating. But when someone calls me and says, hey, I'm starting a class, like if it's middle of October and they call me and say, hey, I got approved for a grant, I need to start November 1st. I have to look at my schedule and I may or may not have time to do all of that. And so like, yeah, I'm gonna try to be accommodating, but maybe I can't come out until October 31st because that's the next time that I can go to your service. And like, then I get out there and you don't have the equipment needed, so you can't start.
So Kim, I'm not trying to take away from Crystal and Jeremy time, but maybe there'll be a time at the conference that's part of that thing that we may get Kyle to video, that we can explain that you need to do your homework.
Yeah.
Before you come to class, before you start thinking about this.
I think before you apply for a grant, you should already be an approved
Training site.
training site. I mean,
But then
if
you're
you
not
put
gonna
in
want.
the grant, then you get it, you don't have everything.
You're gonna jump through the hoops, let's say.
Yeah.
I mean, I get
But
that.
the grant doesn't cover any equipment, right?
Right.
Like, so
No.
the problem we have 9 times out of 10 out of these 320 classes is we get there and they don't meet the minimum equipment list. And so that, most of the time, that's the problem. Secondary, it's, now I don't have instructor. But we do, they go through the whole process when we get out there and they're missing half the required equipment. And it's like,
Which is something we talked about, the coordinators being able to address with our equipment caches, that we could kind of influx that to an area, and go, hey, here's something that you can keep for a couple of months.
Yeah, that would be good to know next, your committee, Scott, to bring back for next budget cycle. It may be that we fund regional caches of the necessary equipment. And then they just have to have a sign-all agreement that equipment's available me these 3 months or whatever.
I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. Anything y'all can figure out to help us improve that 191, it'd be nice to have 191 new EMTs or EMRs or something. So.
Is it safe to say that the majority of the people that get grants, they do it annually? I mean, I know some of those services and they're well established and so, and you never turn anybody down. It's just some people that weren't ready. So it'd be nice to know which ones weren't ready, didn't have that stuff, so maybe we could address it. Reach out to them to assist, because we don't know who it is and it's not.
Right, I'll check. Travis has been keeping some pretty good notes. I'll be honest, I've been focused on the conference.
No, I understand.
Well, on our end, too, there are a couple of things that we're doing that are actually gonna make it a little bit easier, there's some project management pieces that we're putting in place, because right now, the number of times that Cam and Travis are touching these classes is unwanted. It is just not working. So there's some things that we're implementing to make that better. And I think that we can probably include some of those things into the project management.
Yeah, because their equipment list is pretty big.
Yeah,
Class, I
it's
mean.
expensive. Oh, really?
And they certainly have equipment.
Any other questions or comments about the scope of work?
Where in your mind in this is money gonna come from at the end? I guess you kind of threw me. I know we wind up with having to reallocate money every year for the last 3 years. But when you look at this and we've added to certain ones, those are usually the ones what are the ones that we usually wind up with extra from, I guess, is what I'm asking. Cause when I look at this, I go, wait a minute, are those the ones we added extra to in the scope of work with that?
Good question.
And I'm going off memory, so I very well may be wrong.
The NAENT,
Right.
put it out there that 25 students, but a lot of people come
Don't
in
get the
with,
25.
yeah, they don't come in with 25, and then they say, well, I've got the most current EPC book, so I don't need a set of books. So really, then the only thing we wind up funding is the instructor and some soft good items. So then we have money left over from that class that we can roll. But I have to potentially plan for
For the
max
books
students.
each.
Yeah,
Right,
and then
okay.
every service needs the books. Paramedic is right on the money. Extrication is right on the money. Accents is right on the money. TECC, that was gonna depend on whether the instructors have to travel. If they don't have to travel and have hotel rooms, the cost on that drops. EGOT, the same thing. EMS instructor, that number is based on, we do provide, double occupancy rooms for the students that go for 3 nights. So if you get a lot of students that, if they wanna stay by themselves, they have to pay 50% of the room. Or if they don't, if they're just commuting, then again, we don't have the hotel cost of right there. So you'll see some of that coming in on this class that we just finished out at Douglas County. It's gonna be dependent upon where the students are, where the students come from. So that number will have a potential to roll. ENT, EMR, again, that's gonna roll upon itself, because if they do an EMR class, in the scope of work, you'll see that the cap on the pay for an EMR instructor is $2,000. Period, plus the
Right.
students get the jump bags. So that's it, so that will roll. And again, all that's, EMR, ENT grant, the way it's scoped out in the work is for 25 max to start, 20 to end. So if you have 15 in, then you've
Yeah,
got
but,
money that's gonna roll there too.
We did look at trends on that, and we were having very few of them that were maxing out that 25 every time, so that's why we backed it back down to 22.
Just when I look at it, knowing the workforce problems and that's what we're dropping down, I mean, it stands out to me when I look at it,
But
it bothers me.
actually put more money in it.
And I understand that, and I see that but it's just, we're dropping down to 28 classes from what?
Well, I mean, again, that's what we're budgeting.
That's why I wanted to understand it.
And the budget is 14,000, so, no, I understand. But to do it differently means we would have to change the spend plan, and then they would have to spin up and do the scope of work again. I'm committed to do as many initial classes as we can. And it was set up a rule, that's the initial funding. The initial funding was just for 50-hour EMR classes. That's all we started with.
Right.
Huey was the one that brought it to the table to let's do the EMT classes. And I initially was kind of against it. My idea of the EMR was people all over your county get their open airway stop bleeding, save lives. But I now understand the need for this, so.
Well, then, before we know it, the budget will be here, next budget will be here soon, and we can increase that amount.
How many are we doing that are not?
What now?
How many of these classes are we funding and doing that are not considered rural in area? And I'm maybe asking something you don't know right off the top of your head, and I apologize. I just.
Right, I based the number on I knew that we had 13 going on right now.
That's not a
And then
security.
I would do 28 to start out with.
Right.
And then knowing that we're gonna be rolling some money. Again, this rolling money across years is a new animal to us.
Right.
And trying to figure it out, that, again, 13 now, 28, and then what can we add to it? That was my concept when I was developing this.
Any other questions or comments?
Do we have any applications that aren't being filled, that have been submitted?
Oh, yeah, because they want to start their class in March or April of next year.
But I mean, that's not even a feasible time to start, I just need to requesting on that, but right now, we don't have any applications that have been requested that haven't been granted a class, right? EMR, EMT.
We have
Yes.
we have not turned anybody down.
Okay.
If somebody couldn't get their ducks in a row,
Right.
we just told them you're back to the hall. So,
I don't,
But I would like for us to be able to keep some data on, why they backed away. Why they couldn't do the class, they couldn't find an instructor, they didn't have their act, whatever, they didn't have the equipment. So that we can, as we move forward, try to address those barriers and maybe get them to be able to teach classes there. And in a perfect world, the technical schools would go back to what they did when I was young at this, which was literally in a different century. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
and like Scott said, next year will be here before we know
What?
it. Next year will be here before we know it.
Yeah,
Another budget's gonna be here.
yeah. Well, the thing we gotta do right now is get this approved so that these ladies and these ladies can get a budget together and a contract. The contract ends November 30th, I believe. So I told someone on the phone this morning, I will not have a happy Thanksgiving if the contract's not signed. So I think we just need to get that done. Any other question about the scope of work?
Hey, Courtney, this is Terry. I just joined.
Hey, man. We fixed the vote. I hope. I need somebody to make a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the budget with the discussion that we had.
Second. I have a motion and a second. That would approve the scope of work with the concept of additional funding available will be allocated towards initial education.
Copy that.
Any discussion? All in favor of the aye?
Aye.
Any against, same sign. All right, I'll say that it's unanimous. Thank you, but it passes. Anything, I think there's a thing in here about meeting dates.
Yeah,
Was that?
We need to approve the next year's meeting dates, which is the same cadence as last year. But I did want to know, I think we canceled the April and July meeting this year. I'm not sure if they conflicted with the conference, so I don't know if we want to change that or keep it as placeholder. And then another thing to note is the March meeting we had this year was a call meeting to discuss education pre-planning. I'm not sure if that's too tight of a turnaround for the educational needs assessment, or if we should push it out March next. We can do it.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I move we approve the calendar as submitted. Second.
I agree. There we go.
Hey, guys, quick question about open grants. We talked about.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have are you sending out the equipment grant stuff this week, Friday?
Next Friday, October 15th.
Okay, so is there anything significant on there changing that we're gonna get any questions about? I know we all voted on the list, so that's.
So your committee did it.
I know that, but so is there anything that we need to know, just if we get questions, you can think of?
A transition to Form 2 dot form, similar to Smartsheet, but a lot easier and visually appealing. And then another change you guys made was the minimum funding floor, so that may be the question that pops up. Where to establish a 9,200.
Right.
I think
Then nothing significant.
And the only thing I could think we're gonna get a question is somebody saying, well, they got it, why didn't I? But they've got 5 different territories or something like that.
I think we're gonna get some pushback from some folks on
I
that.
did send it out, a save the date, a week or so ago, and I sent out the approved distribution to give people head notice. So I would think if there were any questions, we would have already received them, but, sometimes they look at it 2 weeks before.
Well, the
too.
deadline's not for another while, so
Yeah.
they'll look at it the week before the deadline.
Yep. And remember, we got a call meeting in November.
Yes.
And they will send out, if there's any requests from services, I'm sure there will be, for variance on what we got on the equipment list. And we'll vote those individually up or down.
Are we gonna do that electronically or in
We're
person?
gonna, yeah, no, virtually. Okay, good. I mean, I'll be happy for you.
No.
Okay,
Driving from Marietta today, I'm good for electronic.
I
Yeah,
will say that April the 9th is everybody's spring break and everything else, just something to think about. That
well, that gives us a day or two
if
to,
that is a,
I appreciate that, Chris. Good eye. I'm planning something Sunday for the church and all the kids is out of school and they all gone, so.
right.
But anyway, there'll be enough chicken for me. Anything else that we need to discuss? Going once, going twice, leave a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I think I got a second, third. Thank you so much for your time. I heard it noted that I got you out of here before noon.
You did good.